All right, everyone, we start off today talking about a threat to free speech, specifically with regards to the internet, and that is the Digital Platform Commissions Act, the DPCA, which I've gotten numerous tips on, actually. I was going to talk about it the other day. I had other things that I had to cover, but it's rather important. Michael Bennet, Democratic senator from Colorado, is the one pushing this initially. An archived link in the description. I mean, you can read the entire bill for yourself as well. It's bad. It makes things like SOPA or PIPA actually look tame by comparison. The entire internet already has regulatory layers over it that prevent free expression. We see, for example, the U.S. and other governments pressuring sites to take material down, pressuring sites to deplatform people. They do this with the banking sector as well. We see all sorts of egregious and often unlawful attacks on free expression online already. What the DPCA would do is create a big budget and a new commission to study, in the preliminary sense over some years, to study how to police content more directly. The most worrisome aspect of it is that it would effectively allow the U.S. government to attack people directly. It would effectively legalize the illegal activities that went along with the Twitter files. The government would no longer have to operate in the shadows using hidden kill switches and backdoor methodologies. Under the DPCA, you could directly police content. Part of that is, of course, this mythological struggle against disinformation, as I've pointed out. The war on disinfo is itself the real disinfo, generally speaking. While there is state propaganda out there, and while there is malevolent misinformation that circulates, most of the time, if something is presented as true and it's not, what is it? Is it meant to undermine national security? Is it meant to cause a banking collapse? Is it a terrorist group doing it? No, it's a troll. It's some edgy 13-year-old, or it's some bored boomer or something that just sits there on the computer all day and fantasizes about the days of Alamac. That's the average misinfo that you find when it is state level. Sometimes it comes from Western governments, often the United States government, of course. The United States government under Obama was released from former code that prevented them from engaging in domestic propaganda using especially the media, which is tied at the hip with big tech. In fact, they have become effectively doppelgangers of one another. Big tech sites engage in disinformation, algorithmic distortion, outright lying. Fact checkers often don't really check facts, etc., etc. If you look on any political article on Wikipedia, you'll find plenty of lies by omission, for example. The legacy media engages in this in the most vehement manner. The DPCA allows the government to get directly involved. So, the government no longer needs to ask politely or insinuate that we'll break your kneecaps if you don't. Twitter to ban the journalist that is dumping classified documents. No longer necessary. Now they can either force Twitter to do it, if this passes, through a fining methodology, which they already have to deal with the European nations, by the way, as well as some in Asia, or they can take it down themselves. They can jail the individual that posted the misinfo. However the hell you define that. Now, here's the good news. In its current form, this is DOA. There aren't even the votes in the Senate, let alone the U.S. House, to get such a bill passed. I can't see it gaining traction. The problem is twofold. Number one, in slightly modified form, or if you were to take this basic concept that will be panned by the public if the public is ever made aware of this, I don't even think a lot of liberals would support it with the current wording if they understood the wording that's there. That's great. But if you were to do what the government has done, for instance, with its disinformation board, its Ministry of Truth, and then simply change its name and wait a few months for the public fury to die down, and then resubmit it with a new name and slightly different wording with a couple pieces parsed out, what you could end up with is a slightly tempered version of this bill becoming bipartisan. The second problem is, of course, the current incarnation of government will be shaken up in 2024. Well, you could have a supermajority of Democrats in the House at that point, depending on what happens in the election. Or Hong Kong, you totally won't have a supermajority of unipartyists that secretly would support such a bill if they thought they could get reelected after voting for it. Not likely, but it's possible. And the Republicans have a weak track record of standing in the way of things like this. Ted Cruz and Rand Paul's the only one really with balls. Him and Massey and a few others are the only ones that actually genuinely care. And then you get the big talkers like Ted Cruz, the Band-Aid on a gaping wound man of the NSA filibuster where he abandoned Rand Paul, and I will never forgive him for that. That was back under the Obama administration, actually. Fun times. They held out for hours. Then Ted Cruz decided to say, well, I don't know, we can't lock things down for too long. He got nervous, basically. He shit himself with nervousness. And then he got a phone call from McConnell saying, cut it out or something. Then decided to drop the issue in exchange for minor compensation. Well, we'll still spy on you, but we'll have corporations help us do it to take care of the First Amendment issue, even though the courts have already told us that Congress has to act because the spying itself is unconstitutional. Have we heard buttfuck anything, by the way, since that particular point in time? No. The spying is ongoing. Love-in is still a thing. The NSA still spies for political reasons. It harvests all of your cell phone calls, and there's nothing you can do about it because there aren't enough balls in Congress to stop it. My worry, therefore, is that people will get hoodwinked, will be bamboozled on this issue, and the DPCA won't go anywhere. But the suggestion has been made. The Republicans secretly do want to spy on you as much as the Dems do because they think that it'll be good for the country and for liberty and the star-spangled bullshit that they rhinos believe in. They think that, if we become more like the Nazis, then the Nazis won't win, basically. Literally wrote a booklet on that topic years ago. And so my worry is that it'll be renamed. It'll be shuffled around a little bit. The basic premise staying intact, and that some time from now it'll come forth in a bipartisan manner. So whether it's Bennett or not is meaningless. One of the liberals in the Senate, presumptively, I don't think it'd enter in at the House level, will get together with McConnell or some other neocon. They'll push the issue and say, well, and they'll dovetail it with AI. AI at this point has become the biggest authoritarian boogeyman of all. They say, well, AI is going to take your jobs. AI is going to be a national security threat. Where have we heard this shit before? AI is going to cause big problems. Give government more control over it. Government is here to help. I think I'd rather have a bunch of mega corporations run AI in an almost monopolistic fashion. That's why they don't want open source AI. They don't want competitors for the groups they can control. Well, it's mentioned in this bill. Imagine that. The biggest boogeyman of the time. It's just like this is, again, another example of a Patriot Act for the internet. It's an attempt to rein in the internet that allows for competitive speech and expression and to put that genie back into the bottle on behalf of the Uniparty and their corporate donor buddies. It's not to keep you safe. It's not to keep the rise of the robots from happening. It's not to prevent gray goo or anything like that. It's to fuck you in the ass. And if you look at the wording to this bill, it's linked in the link in the description. I think that you will probably agree. So speak out against it. Talk to your congresspeople if this begins going anywhere and say, that's a no-go zone for me, brah. Expect not to be reelected if you support it in any meaningful way. That's about all. Peace out.